Today I have on the phone with me Tim Huntley from Statewide Monitoring Services. Statewide are based in Queensland and they've been a long-time user of ADSW and have recently migrated over to CAMS. So Tim, to kick off the conversation, if you can just share with our listeners what Statewide Monitoring Services do, your core businesses and services, and what your role is there.
Okay, our core business is mainly bureau monitoring. The Statewide was established as a bureau monitoring only station. And since 1997, that's what we've been carrying out here in Brisbane. My core role here is operations manager. I oversee all the bureaus, all the control room. I also do sales and technical coordination.
And from what I understand, you guys have been using or had been a user of ADSW for around 20 years. Is that correct?
That's correct. When we started Statewide in 97, we actually started with ADSW.
Right. And what about the buying process in terms of migrating away from ADSW? Did you evaluate other brands of alarm monitoring software platforms, or did you jump straight into CAMS? What was the process there?
Yeah, we did look at some others as well. Decided they were compatible enough and couldn't be adapted properly, within a reasonable budget.
Right. And I guess you obviously contacted Shortacting during that process to take a look at CAMS. Can you explain or step us through how that process kicked off?
Okay, well, Shortacting supplied us with a copy of CAMS, which we loaded onto several machines here, and we actually used the operators themselves to assess the software and make, recommendations and where changes were needed. So I went to the coalface and got the correct answers where you needed.
How important is it, do you think, to get the operators involved in the decision-making process?
Oh, it's very important because they're the ones that have got to use it and they're the ones that have got to answer the client's questions when they come in. So they've got to know where to go, how to look it up, etc.
Right, so the operators got involved, they evaluated the software, you took a look at it, and from what you were saying in a previous phone call conversation we had, you had a list of wants. You liked what you saw, but you had a list of wants that you wanted Shortacting to add into CAMS. That's
correct, yes. It was quite a list, and the programmers at Shortacting were very good and supplied what we needed. Because we do bureau monitoring, a lot of the bureaus have specific things they have for their clientele. So we had to do a lot of modifications to suit a lot of different scenarios that were coming in. And it took a fair bit of work, and it was completed, and it seems to be working quite well now at the moment.
So how has the experience been since you've migrated across? I mean, obviously you felt that it was the right time to move away from ADSW?
That's correct. The main shift was we had to keep up with the times, the new equipment coming on. The Shortacting programmers were very good. They kept up to date, they're making the changes accordingly. And it's an adaptable software. It can be modified to do new things coming into the market quickly. You don't have to wait for somebody that's in the States or in China or wherever to pull it out of his in basket and say, we've got to do this. It's actually done very quickly at Shortacting.
So the fact that Shortacting offered a consultative software development service as part of the CAMS delivery and having them as a local business so you're getting faster response, that's obviously was important to you.
That's correct, yes. Because it is a very big step to do.
Actually, it's probably worth mentioning at this stage that all the co-development, the work that's been done to date between Shortacting and Statewide is only going to benefit the rest of the ADSW monitoring centres who are looking at migrating away. So it's probably a good time for them to have a look at CAMS now.
Oh, that's correct. And then they'll have their own customisations as well, which I believe Shortacting should be able to build into CAMS and make it a better program than what it is again today. So then everybody will be able to share that same program and all work on the same platform. Yeah,
that's a good point. And of course, everyone benefits from that.
Yes.
So with what you know now, having the experience of making the switch from ADSW to CAMS, what advice would you give to existing ADSW monitoring centres who are considering moving to a different software platform?
Yeah, look, get themselves a copy of the CAMS program and go through it like we did and let the operators look at it, view it, test it, work with it, and get their comments and get their feedback, because that's very important. Each operator went through the programs and they just noted down what they wanted. And they pointed out the real necessities, the urgent stuff and the non-urgent stuff.
What were some of the pain points and challenges you guys had to face with transitioning away from ADSW and moving to a new platform?
Oh, just the operators getting used to going from a training system to a live system. The initial changeover, the operators' workload increased. They started working on a new platform with a live system, so it slowed them down a little bit. But it was just a transition between the two programs, and the operators just need to be patient when they transfer from one to the other. After about 2 weeks, they were all back to their normal working speed and knew where they were going and what they were doing.
And what about your customers? Were they impacted in any way when you made the switch over?
Yes, when it came to the reporting side, the reports were printed differently and things like that. So we just customised some of the reports to suit, very close to the ADSW platform, and they were quite happy with that.
Okay. And so apart from customising reports to suit the clients, has there been any other features within CAMS that you've customised in-house to help speed up operator workflow and make things a little bit easier within Statewide?
Oh, the easiest way, I created some actual templates to suit default templates for different client types. And it made it very easy for the operators to select what they needed to initially start an account off.
Yeah, right. And I imagine because CAMS is now central to Statewide's business, obviously new technology is going to be coming in. There's going to be new services probably you'll be offering and so on. So are you expecting to do further development on CAMS with Shortech over the next 6 to 12 months?
Oh, yes, we have a number of things on the drawing board at the moment that are going through the processes to make it even better.
Well, with that in mind, do you think it's good timing for monitoring centres to take the time out to get a demo of CAMS?
It probably wouldn't hurt them, no. It would be a good idea. And then with the new stuff coming through, that I think it would suit most monitoring stations at the moment.
Is there any advice you would give to ADSW monitoring centres who are in the market for an alarm monitoring software system, looking to move to a newer software platform? Is there anything that you would recommend to them in terms of what to look out for and what to prepare for?
Just to make sure that their data is actually up to date and correct for the conversion over. The last thing you want to do is convert over old data. We've done quite a large update of all our client data before we've done the merge, which gives us a good start.
Right, so make sure your house is in order before you make the move.
Basically, yeah. And then decide on your date, and from that date it happens. So you don't load any new data as of this time and this date.
I guess a major point that would be of interest to monitoring centres is the transfer of the data from one platform to the other. How critical is it, and what was your experience moving your data from ADSW to CAMS?
Oh, it's very critical when it comes to that client data. You have to ensure that it is transferred correctly and everything goes to where it needs to be. Otherwise, things can get missed, alarms don't report, and suddenly you find yourself in a lawsuit. So Shortech has created a migration tool, which is very good, that picks up 99.9% of the data. So it was quite good.
Wow, that's very accurate. So that's something that the monitoring centres, I'd imagine, would want to know about, because obviously the data is critical. Accurate data transfer is critical. What about the time period it took? How long was it for you guys to be able to merge everything from ADSW, 20 years of data over to CAMS?
It took us roughly 45 minutes.
Wow.
By the time, we have to back up your ADSW and then take it across. So it was about 45 minutes, roughly.
Okay, that's very quick. Just quickly, I wanted to touch on training. How did you ensure that your operators were all up and running and trained with CAMS? What was the process that you implemented there?
We actually come down to Sydney and sat with Damien, the training guy you have in Sydney, and went through everything through the program there with one of our senior operators here, who then come back and wrote a training program to teach the operators how it actually worked and how to work it.
Well, that's pretty much a wrap in terms of the questions that I had for you. But maybe to finish off, could you possibly share some, words of wisdom for owners of monitoring centres in terms of what they should be looking for in a software vendor and the software itself?
Well, one, that you've got a software that can be developed and, for the next sort of 10 to 15 years and can maintain, the changes within our industry and stay up to date with our industry all the time. New panels that emerge, whatever comes into the marketplace, there's something new coming in every week. So you've got to try and keep in touch with all that stuff. So, it's a big thing for a monitoring station. You have to be on the ball all the time and stay up to date all the time. That means working with a lot of the wholesalers and manufacturers pretty closely as well.
What about new stuff, emerging technologies that you see that are on the horizon that business owners of monitoring centres should be aware of or should be thinking about at the very least?
Monitoring-wise, video verification is coming along in leaps and bounds as a selling tool for the installers out there. If you go and sell an alarm system and they want a camera system as well, you can on-sell that you can do video verification of alarm activation. So mainly the video monitoring side of things with the remote card, robotics and all that through there. That's coming along in our industry at a great rate of knots. So, the more we can keep up with that, the better. Otherwise, the CAMS program in general works well. It's covering all our needs.
And that was Tim Huntley from Statewide Monitoring Services, located up in Queensland, sharing his experience in migrating the monitoring centre from ADSW over to CAMS. And if you would like to arrange an appointment to set up a demo of CAMS, or you've got questions about anything covered in this podcast, then get in contact with Dave or Luke on 1300 65 4433, or you can contact Shortech via their website at shortech.com.au.